Okay, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to Taupō District Council meeting for February 2025 in our somewhat temporary but beautiful building here, Mayor House. Welcome to my Deputy Mayor, Councillors, members of the public, members of the staff and all those and sundry. So we'll just all stand to get the meeting underway by cutting here. Turangi, Tongariro, Turangi, Thank you very much, councillors. Apologies, I've just got a late apology from Councillor Campbell. Any other apologies? We've got Councillor Fletcher. He's online. Oh, he's here? Oh, well done, Karen. Kia ora, Karen. You're the sidebars on your face. Who's next to you there? Sandra? Kylie.
Councillor Nina.
Okay, just keep apology. Can I have a movement for those to be accepted? Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Second by Councillor Rankin. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. We're just going to have a slight change around the agenda. We'll do the minutes now, but so 5.1 to 5.2, 5.3, which is all basically the same item, we'll defer to later in the meeting. And we'll start with 5.4. But first up, we have any conflicts of interest came to the items today. Councillor Westman.
When it comes to the grant funding, Walmer House.
Yes.
If I'm chairman.
Okay, thank you very much.
Through the school using our work education trust.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm the trustee on the Mara Energy Trust.
Trust, thank you very much.
Kids screening table.
Yes, is it kids or just screening table?
Kids.
Is it kids? Yeah, okay. Councillor Lachlan.
One needs me too.
And you. What's happening in a small community, isn't it?
There's people.
Go to that there. Happy with it? Got all those? Yeah, cool, okay. We'll move on. Confirmation minutes of the ordinary council meeting that was held on the 26th of November 2024. Any points of clarification of those minutes? No. Could I have a movement, please, that we accept? Thank you very much, Councillor Lachlan, second by Councillor Rankin. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. 10th December 2024. Any clarification of those minutes? No. Could I have a movement for those minutes, please? Thank you, Councillor Williamson, second by Councillor Park. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. 4.3 ordinary council meeting on the 17th of December. Points of clarification of those minutes? No. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd, second by Councillor Lachlan. There, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Extraordinary council meeting 20th of December. Any points of clarification?
I think it was an apology, but in fact I was in Mangakino trying to go online. So
All right with the I'm happy to move.
You have to move, Councillor Taylor, thank you, and second, please. Councillor Shepherd.
I just wanted to ask, is the annual report on our website now?
Yes.
Somebody was asking about it this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the website.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's off the next for our
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Just going to say the quality of the minute taking has been extraordinary. Pass on to the team, yeah. Not any queries at all there, so well done. Delighted to move on to that extraordinary meeting. Councillor Rankin, second by Councillor Taylor.
So I just one point that Councillor Westman made that she was trying to connect. Did we suggest or not?
No.
So I just wonder whether that the minutes need to reflect. Sorry. Yes, but David, December 17. Can I leave a second that, not? Apology. So we've only got 3 apologies and not Councillor Westcott. She was intended to get your apologies in for that. How's that work?
Chair, I didn't formally do it. I thought I had, but then I realised I was meant to.
So
It's fine the way it is.
so through the chair, I wanted to make a note and again for those minutes that we had attended to doing on this. Yeah. And that's fine.
Is it a move for the extraordinary 20%? All right, we'll move on. 5.4 TEL fund update. Who have we got presenting this item? Is it there? Yeah. Jeanette, finance manager not here? Oh, hi Jeanette. Come on up if you like, Jeanette.
It's really all in this.
Oh, okay, cool.
Thank you,
All right.
Andrew Bateman and Katie both from Forsyth Bar. Good afternoon. Thank you, your worship and councillors, for having us at this update.
Cool. Welcome.
So there was a presentation PowerPoint sent out with the pack, and I was just going to talk to some of the high parts of that for you, and then Katie can handle on the ESG side of things, which is also in that report, and happy to take questions as required.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
So first slide talks a little bit about the background of when we started things off, September 23 with initial tranche of funds, and then more added over time as various deposits matured. And we had a time frame of 30 April 2024 for the portfolio to be fully invested, which it was. And at that same time, you may recall, we did a recommendation for the statement of investment policy and objectives, changed the weightings around, and ended on a balanced asset allocation rather than the previous conservative treasury policy that we had. So full implementation was achieved by 30 April and has been operating on a balanced asset allocation from that point of time. The reporting we have is to the end of December, so it covers the full calendar year, of which the first 4 months were conservative and partly implemented, and the balance, full balance and fully. During that period of time, on part of it, you'll see on this nice wee wiggly graph things on the presentation. It's heading upwards, which is the desired intent, obviously. And during the period of time, we'll see that the benchmarks allocated to a balanced portfolio were met, in fact exceeded, as say, despite it being partially and then fully implemented. There is a snapshot of the portfolio summary on the page as at 31 December. Showing a balance of $76,734,000, which is again proven on the initial deposited sum. So the return was 14.05% for that calendar year. Benchmark return would have been 11.86%, so we beat on that, which is good. I will, as people in our profession always do, as accountants, say that is a very short period for measuring performance. However, it's on the right side of things, which is good. And with that balanced asset allocation, we expect that to continue to move forward. One of the things that I might preempt, say Katie a job, is someone might ask us about the impact of investments of the new President of the United States of America. I've been getting that question a lot from clients, and the answer is nobody knows. So day by day pronouncements come out and get changed. The big one that seems to have been on people's minds is tariffs and what that will do for things. And again, until tariffs are actually fully implemented and we know the impact on New Zealand, we don't know. From a New Zealand point of view, I believe the major exports to America are red meat and wine, which they can produce domestically, so you would expect them to have tariffs. Now, as far as the portfolio goes, that's not an issue because none of the holdings are in that situation. It's more about perhaps what it might do to US interest rates and their various impact on currency, the US dollar versus New Zealand dollar. So what I'll say to that is we mitigate that as far as we can through sensible diversification of asset classes and then holdings within that. And currency tends to be a zero-sum game over time. The rest of it, if there's to be anything sort of material, it's not the right word for Mr. Trump, long-term significant, then we'd alter the portfolio as holdings, but still stay within the same asset allocation. Just any help? Any queries or questions on that particular one?
What happened last time in Trump? Councillor Lachlan.
A lot of our this week is around the ESG and our meeting those requirements. Just curious, I know it's early days, but just the impact in terms of the changes in America where they're pulling back from the banks and others are pulling back from it, and whether that might have an impact in terms of what we're doing, because we may have less investments and other things. But we can put it in our portfolio because they will no longer meet that requirements because they're trying to ratio themselves with the president by shifting things out the window.
Well, we look at it a lot more than just commitments. And the very last, second to last slide is where we sort of cover the position we've taken on climate change with the portfolio and how we're looking and measuring things. I think like when we first put this together, and it's just something I say to all clients, we didn't expect the low carbon transition to be in one direction. It's going to be like this over time, but I think there's very clear trends to show the world is decarbonising over time. And I think, you know, there's lots of short-term noise, and absolutely we need a period of transition to see through that. But I think the way we've set this up is to try to monitor what's going on in the world, and the economy probably isn't decarbonising as fast as we would like it to, but we are, you know, sending signals to companies that we want them to. We're measuring what they're doing. We're following what the profile of your fund is doing, and I think it's just something that we're going to have to look at year on year and keep on top of and assessing and making sure we're using current best practices to do what we can in terms of through the portfolio.
Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Anything else to add?
I'll just quickly whip through the few slides in terms of the response. So a reminder that the responsible investment policy that's in the SIPO, we've designed it for prudent investment outcomes while also remaining consistent with values. And the presentation from here is about how we implement your SIPO in terms of the RI policy and the commitments to climate change. So the first slide about the ethical screen, this is really just showing, well, in terms of the broad ESG profile of the fund, it's really in good shape. There's very little headline risk in terms of the holdings in the portfolio. And every quarter we are reviewing and monitoring what's going on in the portfolio and making sure that there's no flags that come up along the way. As noted, we're switching service providers, which will mean a small change to your cycle in the future, but there's nothing material, no material or nothing at all, no changes to what they're bringing up in your portfolio in terms of flags. On the next slide about impact investment, the SIPO commits us to use our best endeavours to find impact investment that is suitable. Now, it's not easy in New Zealand to find the right type of impact investment that's got the right risk return profile, that's of its appropriate size and liquidity. We look at all of those sorts of things when we're deciding what goes into the portfolio. And, you know, part of the story is that we keep you informed of what we look at and what we say no to, as well as what we say yes to. So I think it's this slide here just to show the view of the investments that we've looked at over the period and what we haven't proceeded with. And I know Andrew talked to Sarah about potential things of interest, and it might not all land on your desk, but really this is just to give you some comfort that we are looking for these types of investments to find suitable ones for your portfolio. You can go into some detail if anyone has questions on what those particular funds are, but I'll leave it for questions. And yeah, we do use some externally managed funds in your portfolio, and what we do when we're deciding if any are suitable is we review their policies in terms of alignment with yours, and then we do attest that we've looked at those and made sure there aren't there's nothing out of alignment that would cause us to worry on your behalf, or something that doesn't meet your standards. So we're really comfortable with all of those funds in your portfolio. Yes, if you have any questions about any of them, we can happy to answer.
Cool. Thanks, Kate.
We've covered climate change, and just the final slide just really shows how the reporting, once we start to build up a lot more information on the portfolio, we'll be able to do some reporting like what's on the last slide.
Very good. Any questions on clearance? For the news 14%. Good work. I remember some talk when we were, during the start, what you're going to put money into, whatever. Was arm manufacturer, did we have an equities, some of that produced arms? Did that one go away? Why they're not down the Tasman Sea or anything?
I can't read my wife's there.
Maybe we should change it, David.
It was a trivial question at the time, but
No,
but
we
it's
said we would.
just for it's the sort of thing the newspaper would pick up on. Yeah. Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, just a quick question on your impact investment slide. Looking at the companies you've got there, was the not proceeding on the basis of return on investment or failing to meet SIPO requirements, or a combination?
Combination. So, for example, the community finance product that we had a presentation with Sarah was of interest, but not here. That makes sense. And so, limited relevance to you, and also that you'll be proceeding with hopefully some social housing rather than community housing. The MOVAC Merge Fund 4 did not proceed, and that is around liquidity as much as anything else. The Artisan Green Sustainable Bond Fund is fine. However, we felt that the existing bond holdings have direct holdings of New Zealand funds will go produce better income, net cost too. And I suppose the next one is the Contact Energy Green Capital Bond. So companies, particularly energy companies, issue these green bonds, and they certify that they'll only use the proceeds of that 200 million, 300 million, whatever, for green projects, and they certify that. And so we say it's really good. They do that so they can use the money for that, but also it means that they can get a slightly better rate, a slightly cheaper rate, that's still attractive on a risk return basis. And the GMO Climate Change Fund, we sold that one on that side performance, and that's largely to do with interest rates making the cost of clean energy projects more expensive, and the collapse of the solar market out of China.
Yeah. So, yeah, a bit of a disappointment that one. I think the performance is solely invest in solutions for climate change, but unfortunately it's had a really, really tough year last year. So decision to.
Sorry, just the video. The tech company from Silicon Valley. Do we have any investment in that?
Yes.
We do. Oh, that's good at market. One of the
Not as a direct holding.
sorry.
But the externally managed international equity funds do have holdings to a great degree in NVIDIA. And so within that, none of those funds will have 100% of their money in it. They will have an internal cap of 1 or 2% of the total fund, probably in an individual stock like that.
When I'm talking to one of the owners, we can say the investment in that company. Cool. Councillor Leonard.
What do you say for the biggest risks and the biggest opportunities for this community fund for the next 12 to 24 months?
So the general view on that is that last year was a really good year. I'd expect this year to produce a more medium, long run return. So risks. New Zealand, as our economy keeps staggering. So interest rates, as you know, coming down, the delayed impact of that impacting the real economy, as you're all well aware, seems to be taking longer and longer. Internationally, again, what the States does and its geopolitical objectives will impact things. Tariffs, yes, they will, but again, they can be mitigated. There's already been some firms that come out and said, fact, was it today came out and said, oh, well, we'll just build $500 million worth of manufacturing facilities in America, which is largely what they want. So there's always just something somewhere threatening to upset the apple cart. It doesn't sometimes.
And our biggest opportunities in the next 12 to 24 months for this fund?
Yeah,
Answer it like an accountant.
But then, you know, we're expecting volatility, absolutely, and that does bring with that buying opportunities. And saying that we don't try to time the market, and we just staying invested over the long term. We've got some fantastic charts to sort of show the benefit of that. I think that's most important right now, seeing through all that volatility and holding steady and being really comfortable with the approach that we've got in the diversification.
and so that's so the thing that you might think about is saying, well, should it be more growth oriented or perhaps more conservative? The answer is no, it would stay balanced, but the composition of that might change. So even though our target weighting for, say, international equities at 35%, we might keep that exactly what it is, but change the weightings within some of the sectors. So, for example, we have a specialist healthcare fund, might be, as an example, we said, well, let's pop another couple of percent there off a tech fund, vice versa, so that we stay overall, but we just do some tactical tips.
Thank you.
Cool. Very good. Thank you, guys, and thank you for the job you're doing so far, and appreciate today. Appreciate it, and the results are starting to show, which is fantastic. Long may that trajectory be upwards, not onwards. So thanks for coming down today. All right. Thank you very much. No other questions, Jeanette, or anyone regarding that? Happy to receive the information. Happy to move questions. Thank you, Councillor Loughlin, seconded by Councillor Leonard. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Item 5.5, Waste Services Contract CN 523, Mr. Brent Aikman.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors.
And Brent.
And it's good to see Councillor Taylor here. I
Yeah.
saw him in Hammer Springs dressed in leather, so it's nice to explain a bit. More specific. Yeah. Motorbike, yeah.
Thank you.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Start a river.
I'll take, obviously, we're looking to get our contract signed for waste services. We need a little trickle more money. I'll take the item as read and we'll open for questions.
Cool. Thank you, Brent. Any questions of Brent? This is the top up, take us through the contract to 2030?
7 years.
Yeah, 7. Councillor Greenspan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I mean, it is an operational question, but looking at the analysis of the options, the contractor has a proven track record with council. Are we talking about basically renewing a contract with the people that we've got already?
We are renewing the contract that we've got with the contract that we've got, and we're actually extending their service delivery to the 3 transfer stations at the southern end of the lake. Yes.
And you know the question I'm about to ask you, are you going to include the Curtis House School in your pickup?
Turangi House School was under discussion with the contractor, and it's been highlighted that we want to provide the service to them. Yes.
And you think that's leaning towards a yes?
Well, I've been pushing for years. Yeah.
Well, my life depends on it.
I know you've got my correct guidance, so I will be pushing hard.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to add this paper really follows from as a consequence from the policy decisions that you made in the LTP. So
Right. Councillor Taylor.
Given the resource consent process currently underway, what contingency is built in should things change 2027?
So if you're looking at the, so what we've done is we've actually split the landfill operation as a separate contract. So if we are unable to achieve a consent for the landfill, that contract actually closes. So we'll have the opportunity to negotiate an extension of that if we do actually get a consent. So we actually ring fence that just for that inevitable, just for that option, whether it, because we're not unsure actually which way we'll go. So depending on where that happens, we'll either negotiate an extension or that contract will come to a close.
One more question, and this leverages off a comment from Community Gardens about the amount of food waste they're taking. I know that was a non-starter with long-term plan, but in terms of green waste, for example, has that been part of the negotiation, or where are we sitting with that?
Well, so the suite of service delivery that we brought to the table last year was a wheel bin service, the refuse, recycling and a food collection service. Green waste wasn't on the table. We've stayed with the status quo, so that option for service delivery is not provided under this contract. But I do hear that EnviroWaste are looking to provide a private green waste service, which is great. We don't have to fund that. They can do that as a user-pay service. I might be speaking out of turn, but I think there's other options in regards to commercial operators offering food collection services. So we're working with those people to see how we can make that happen. Obviously, that will come as a user pays cost to the service, to whoever wants to pick up that service. But yeah, our job is to try and now facilitate something else in that market if we can do that.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. No more questions. There's a recommendation there. Right, move it, please. No? Yep. The 121K. Oh, yeah. Yeah, same. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, happy to move that. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, cool. Yeah, thank you very much, Rachel. Thank you, Brent.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. 5.6. Crushed concrete contamination at the Broadlands Road landfill. Louise.
Grand entry.
Yeah. Well done, Louise.
Can run, but you can't hide, as they say. How are we?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Louise.
Good.
Right, what's happening out here?
Oh, the paper is red, but just to give you a brief update. So I think we last came to you on this matter, it might have been back in around June, I think, of last year, where we had undertaken some original testing of contaminated concrete stockpiles, and about 25% of those, with just very few number of tests, had come back as showing contamination with asbestos. Subsequent to that, we've been out, we've engaged a contractor. They've distributed the concrete into 79 stockpiles, taken a number of tests in the order of hundreds, and we now know definitively that it's about 75% of that, over 10,000 tonnes of material is now contaminated with some asbestos, some of which is class A, so that's the fibrous asbestos, which can be tonnes. We've been managing the health and safety risks by keeping the stockpiles damp, and also we have a material cover over a geofabric that prevents any airborne materials getting mobilised. However, we are at a point now where we have received proposals back from a contractor to take it to a disposal facility. You can see in the paper that we've looked at a number of disposal facilities. We've actually worked really hard to try and see what other options are available to us. Most cost effective of those is actually a facility in the North Waikato, and although it has quite large haulage costs, its low disposal costs for receiving the material mean that it's actually the most viable option for us. We also considered what on-site disposal would look like, albeit we know that that's not desirable from our iwi and Hubbard partners, and with the factors of waste disposal levies, which we'd be prone to as a class 1 landfill, and also carbon tax, which we are also required to pay, actually makes it a more expensive option than transporting it up to the North Waikato, which is subject to different levies. We did explore receiving the costs for high haulage, other options again back at Rotorua. And again, the prices that we have received from to receive that material and dispose of it at that location mean that it is really exorbitant. So we come to you today with a request to enable us to continue the process of disposing, which will require another 850,000 over and above the $500,000 that was granted back in June 2024. And we also wanted to put to you that we don't continue crushing concrete at the landfill, and just acknowledge that that's the approach that we'd like to take on boards. I'm sure that this doesn't happen again. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Liz. Councillor Weston.
I think it's a bit of a no-brainer, the solution there, but just backing up the truck, it's I'll just like operation ran reasonably successfully without too many problems. And then it seems maybe in the last couple of years, we've had this issue. There's no way we can say that was a massive dump from a certain contractor on site because we've got no cameras or you wouldn't have a clue. So can you just tell me about how we knew it had a problem? Someone picked up.
So we had some work going on at Acacia Bay wastewater treatment plant entrance. And in doing that work to redo their entranceway, pavement works, etc., they uncovered a piece of asbestos fibreboard, which was asbestos, and we said, you need to stop work there while we get that managed out and removed safely. The project manager then looked a little bit more closely at what the crushed concrete was that they were using as a base for those pavement works at their entrance location, and thought he saw something that might have resembled pipe that could potentially contain asbestos. And then we went, well, that's come from our own landfill. So we went back and did some testing of stockpiles. Somewhat ironically, the pipe that the project manager identified did not end up containing asbestos. However, the crushed concrete at the landfill obviously did.
There you go.
Through the chair. I understand the only safeguard we've got is a visual inspection. There's no other way to detect asbestos, so I'm quite comfortable that we cease to crush concrete if that is our only safeguard. I think it's too risky.
I mean, the alternative would be to tightly manage receipt of crushed concrete, crush it in batches, test those batches before we dispose, we'll make them available for sale. You then run the risk that some of that has slipped through those visual inspections, which is, as we've discovered, incredibly difficult to control. And then you would be left having to pay for whatever that quantum was to be disposed of. So,
and the testing.
And the cost of the testing.
Yeah.
The cost of the testing, I think you could pass on to purchasers because we sell it quite reasonably priced, and the cost, if you did it in batches, wouldn't be exorbitant, but the cost of disposal could potentially be quite significant. My understanding from Brent is that in our waste strategy, waste minimisation strategy that was adopted recently, that we have adjusted our forecasts for reuse of our recyclable material so that we are not accounting for crushing in concrete. So we've already made an allowance in our future strategies that we won't be crushing concrete to accommodate this, because it happened at much the same time. But nothing is foolproof until you actually test it. I mean, these are hugely, you can't see them, the fibres, they just go from.
And many people rely on purchasing this crushed concrete. Many people rely on the purchasing of the crushed concrete.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's been a fantastic product for us over the last 20-something years. I think we've probably diverted over 100,000 tonnes of material out of the landfill, which has meant if you multiply those numbers, it's sort of $30 million worth of additional waste we've been able to bring into landfill. So yes, it's been a great product, but as Louise has defined, I think going forward, if we were to carry on to receive that material, we're always going to run the risk of being in exactly the same place we are now, of having contaminated material and having, I wouldn't like to be in front of you in 6 months' time and say I've got the same problem. And through our visual inspection process, we thought we had it, and I don't think there's been a past history of contamination. I think that's come from a demolition process that's happened just recently, and because we don't identify, we can't identify the material coming in, we can't point the finger, but obviously there were some processes going on in that place, and we've received some contamination. But at the moment, we've got no way of knowing in the future. We've been doing visual inspections. We have a raft of processes in place to make sure that we weren't receiving asbestos, but I don't want to be in this place again in 6 months' time with the same problem, asking for another $1 million. Yeah, I don't want to put us in that position.
Okay, thanks, Brent. Councillor Leonard?
What risk for not accepting concrete? I mean, are people going, is this going to end up in the bottom of the skip room so you don't see it? Are we going to end up with a filling landfill and still potentially the same risk versus actually taking the batching, processing, testing and eliminating the risk that way? Like, I do hear what you're saying, that the risk of continuing on, but with a more managed situation, like, do we just end up with asbestos in this concrete dump somewhere out in the community where there's no control at all? And then what risk does that play to the general health of our community and our land and our lakes and our waterways?
Can I just chuck an answer at that one? Currently, we don't accept asbestos, never have done for the last many years.
But the concrete was infected with asbestos,
so
it's going to get dumped somewhere else.
Once we put a stop on accepting concrete, we haven't really received any commercial quantities. So those materials are going to other facilities that accept those. I think even our transport team took some concrete over to Rotorua at a reasonable cost. So there is places in the marketplace that will take up that ability to take that material. You know, they're not stockpiling in the back of the paddock somewhere. Over time, those businesses will start up and touch that concrete themselves. And I suppose if you think about that, if that diversion option can happen, it doesn't have to happen here, it can happen somewhere else. It just relieves us of the risk of a contaminant happening at our site long term.
Through the chair, just in response to Councillor Leonard's question, I think the reference to fly tipping basically is a valid one. I think it is a risk associated with that. My understanding through talking with Brent is that if we decide to permanently terminate receipt of concrete for crushing and recycling purposes, there is the potential that a private contractor might come out and fill that space and undertake concrete crushing within the community as a commercial venture, in which case would be dealing with both, but we obviously can't guarantee that. And I'd also be surprised if they would do it at the same rates and offer that for sale at the same rates that we would, because obviously they'd be taking on the risks that we've just been taking on. So there is the potential that someone will come in to fill that gap. However, fly tipping is a concern, you know, we have seen it throughout the district, so it is valid.
I think through the chair, though, the majority of the concrete product is commercial, so there's not a lot of commercial operators that would go and dump a truckload of, commercial concrete on the side of the road. So although I hear your concern, I think the residential stuff and the domestic stuff is probably a lot lower, and will it end up in the landfill? Possibly, or at other places, as I've said, but certainly, yeah, I think the risk of fly tipping is a bit lower because the majority of the material is commercial.
Yeah, thank you. Probably a question for Sarah. Just in regards to the unbudgeted expenditure of 850,000, which obviously is out of our control, we need to do, and I see it's being funded by a cash reserve. What are ratepayers going to miss out on by doing this?
Yeah, so the cash reserve essentially is funding it from a past year surplus. So as councils do over the course of time, you build up a certain amount of retained earnings. So it's just taking it from retained earnings. So essentially it won't be rated for because it is out of the blue unbudgeted expenditure. But at the same time, that doesn't affect our cash flow. So you might see slightly more lending or slightly less money in the bank at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
My question was, just regarding, Rotorua, is a lot closer to North Waikato. Have we actually talked to Rotorua, who owns the quarry in Rotorua, is that a privately owned facility?
Yeah,
If
sure.
we talk to them and say, these are the options we're looking at, surely you can come down on your disposal fees.
Yeah, we have. I mean, we've also gone through a company that works in that sector to see if they had better buying power, because we're kind of a one-off retailer, if you like, as opposed to someone that might be working with them on an ongoing basis. And I think they got them down $10 a tonne. I think they're, I've got the numbers here if you wanted me to look them up, but it's in the order of $460 a tonne as opposed to $43 a tonne. So when you just do the math, it is still.
Is it running your own quarry over there or?
Sherlock's, yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
So through the chair, the issue is the amount of levy, so the class of landfill and the amount of levy they pay to the government. So that's why dumping it in our landfill, even though it seems like it would be the cheapest, again, not from a iwi hapu perspective, but from a cost perspective, it's actually not the cheapest because we actually pay more. So not only is it undesirable on the iwi hapu side, but also financially we pay much more for it because we pay a higher levy because of the class of landfill. So that's the issue. There's other landfill. It's a natural, Louise, correct me, it's a natural disposal landfill or something like that.
Sure.
My understanding, and Brent might be able to clarify better than myself, but we operate what's called like a class 1 landfill. So we are effectively able to take anything. And as a result of that, our government levies waste are higher at $65 a tonne, I believe. Whereas when you get to the type of receiving entity or quarry that doesn't take a broad spectrum of waste and only takes things like building materials and things, they have a different class system. So it's classified as a class 3 or 4 receiving landfill, if you like. And as a result, I think they only pay, I believe it's $10 a tonne in terms of government levies, and they have different, that are not subject to carbon tax either.
Yeah, was so thinking of it, is it worth buying our own truck? You know, we look at
We haven't considered, to be honest, the
specialised truck.
it's not so much the truck,
Yeah.
it's more around the operation of managing contaminated materials. So there's certain protocols that have to be put in place. If we went to just a haulage company and we ignored the fact that it was asbestos, we can get it for a lot cheaper. We can get it for our current budget. But it's all of the asbestos management that's associated with the haulage that drives that haulage price up beyond what you would normally expect to see.
Yeah, it's quite a specialised truck because of course it's got to all be sealed because you don't want the contaminants floating about, as well as the fact that people have to have the right licence to remove it. So I think, yeah, I don't think that would necessarily be plausible for us. Again, Paul Louise, because we were throwing ideas at her, we were honest, honestly, we've thrown so many suggestions in her basket to have a look at, and this definitely is the most cost effective and probably the best outcome from the relationship.
Will we see the final tender for the transportation side of it, or is that you've got to go to?
I think once you've resolved the funding today and the delegation, so it's already about your contract.
Yeah, we did go through a process and we received it wasn't one company, we received competitive procurement.
Yeah, who was over here, Councillor Leonard?
Just in regards to prior to the discovery of the contamination and the mitigations that have been put in place, how safe are our contractors and our staff to the exposure of asbestos prior to the discovery?
That's a really good question. We have, I don't actually know. It depends upon the protocols that the contractor adopted in undertaking the work. Brent probably has a better understanding of that specifically. We did invite him in to talk with us and undertake health monitoring so we could ascertain whether or not there was any potential long-term exposure, bearing in mind that he operates not just for us but a number of other organisations and councils. He declined.
And our staff at the land?
So
We don't have any staff operating at the landfill, it's in borough waste.
For their staff.
And that will been through a process of identification of any risk to them. It's part of their health and safety process.
So we've been working quite closely with borough waste on this matter to make sure that they're doing what they need to do in their space as well.
Through the chair, it's probably good to note too, Louise, that we actually did have a ICAM's report, so an incident investigation afterwards, which went through all the health and safety requirements. So we made sure that from a health and safety perspective, that everybody who had been in contact was at least safe. Or as Louise said, we given the opportunity to participate in what we were doing to as a process post discovery of the incident. So we did everything we could from a health and safety perspective and got the expert in to come and help us with that as well, given we're not asbestos experts, although unfortunately that skill is growing a little bit.
But does that cover us as a PCBU? Like we're also several liable.
Yes,
It's not.
jointly liable. Yeah, so the ICAM is a incident cause analysis piece of work basically that is, my understanding, very standard practice after a significant health and safety related incident. And we wanted that to be conducted with independence so that we could genuinely learn from our experiences. We have received that report and those recommendations have been taken on board by our health and safety manager, Tasha, and she'll talk to you a little bit more about that when she sees the East Rural Council. And we'll be working through those recommendations. But it's, yeah, I genuinely believe that we've done what we can. And Borough Waste also participated in that independent investigation. So the gentleman that came and conducted that for us, he's a well-known expert in asbestos, and he had interviews with all levels of the Borough Waste, right down to the coal face, right up to management and the health and safety manager as well. So we're working through.
And is there any general risk to the general public that have been up at the landfill with this being crushed in an open air environment?
Yeah, we have explored those risks with the gentleman, Mike Hosman, who undertook the independent investigation for us. And we were quite worried to start with, but he said, you've got to take this risk in the context of all, of the bigger risk picture. He said there's actually quite a lot of through use of asbestos, background asbestos. So if you test it anywhere, you're probably going to find a little bit of asbestos because it's been used so much in the building sector. And then he likened it to, food recalls and what appropriate processes would be for us to follow up in terms of contacting people for those risks for the general public. He said that we've done all that we should in terms of notifying the public, and we did back in August, which gave us some confidence. In terms of exposure to the public from the site itself, quite limited because no one's actually present there whilst it's been crushed. That's happened in a closed environment. It's just the contractor. When they come to pick things up, there could be some potential short-term exposure. The bigger concern really is if they took it home with them. So that's why we have those public communications to ask people to come forward and let us know if they're purchased.
Thank you.
Councillor Williams, thanks, Louise. I suppose the estimated tonnage is the best guess, isn't it? And if you're looking at, I would suspect that disposal variation costs are reasonable. If you're looking at $50,000, it's at $43. Dispose the stuff.
Yeah.
So you're looking at about the variation of 1,100 tonnes either over or under.
Yeah, so 40, that's right. So we don't really know until we go over the weighbridge basically how much it is, what this translates to. We've done as best research as we can to see what standard conversion rates are from metres cubed into tonnage. But I didn't want to highlight to you that, there is a potential risk of that plus or minus 50 grand is my best estimate. It might be a little bit more than that, might be a little bit less, I don't know, yeah.
Which will obviously aim.
Councillor Taylor.
I will do everything we can, but the weight will be the weight. Yeah.
But I guess the question I've got slightly different tack. This was either innocently, naively, or deliberately, maliciously, intentionally dumped there. Given the quantity and the significance of the contamination, I'd be very surprised if it was naively and innocently dumped. And I guess if we're going to do any comms on this, it would be well done, community, this is what happens when you ignore the rules, this is how much it costs you. Because that's a direct result of driving past a sign that says no asbestos here and dumping it and being cavalier about it. And I think we should be quite blunt with the community about the fact that somebody out there, and I suspect Brent's got a reasonably good idea who it was, has done this and it's costing everybody as a direct result.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Loughlin.
Yeah, just want to just make sure we get that really right. Those sort of blaming the community when most of us are innocent.
Not suggest we blame the community, but I suggest we say this is what happens when one of your community members, one or more, choose to ignore it. We all pay the price.
All right, I can understand the length of debates because of the numbers.
Oh.
You know, the numbers are big. That's quite a horrific area. It's really quite sad. So sorry about the elongation, Louise, but you know, you can understand the frustration. Sorry, someone over here?
No, I was just going to say somewhere in the notes, it was interesting to read that you put that sign up in the public notifications, and no one out of 70 something deliveries or people who've taken it away. No one came back to say,
No one's come
we've
back.
had a problem.
No, so we haven't had anyone come back.
Okay. Well, there we go. So what are we looking at? How much are we looking at? Sorry, is that the resolution?
About 800.
We've already approved the first lot, eh?
Correct.
How much is the first one? All right, yeah, it is what it is, and thank you for the due diligence that you guys have done on it and talked to various companies and all that sort of thing too. I think you've covered the whole field. I do have a question about the cartage, but I can talk to Julie about that when we get that pricing for that. So I realise it's going to be a specialised carter to do it. So anyway, so do I have a mover? Councillor Loughlin, seeing Councillor Westman, and no further commentary. All those in favour? Aye. Say aye. Against, carried. Thank you, Lord. Yeah, sorry to keep you waiting. Right, harvesting. This is better story than me. Harvesting of a mooring forest. It's a forest with no mooring.
Yeah, give us some money.
It's nice. How much money you got for it, Speak?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a foreign investment basement. Yeah, for those that might have read through the report, at the back there's a map of the Mooring Forest, which is the buffer around the wastewater treatment facility in Mooring. So I don't know who's been there, who hasn't. So the good news, the trees were planted around 1997 as a buffer, and primarily for the wastewater treatment plant operations, and secondary for forestry investment. Like many pine trees, they grow really well on former farmland, and after 20 years or so, or 25 years, they become a bit of a nuisance, and these trees have become a nuisance. They're getting very close to the power lines, and also because of their height, they're encroaching on the productivity of the pasture, which is used for hay and sandwich making. And the feedback from the team that's managing the plant there is that they would like the feeling gone as soon as possible. Getting too tall and ready to be milled. So yeah, so the proposal indicates that the surplus of 209,000. So the purpose of the report is was to bring forward the initial projected harvesting from around about 2027-28 to bring it forward into this financial year. So if we get approval today, we can get the contract underway, and the harvest will only take 1 to 2 months. So the idea would be to get all the proceeds in this financial year before the 30th of June.
There's going to, so 680K to do.
Uh,
Less than 290.
Yeah, and that's correct. How it's promoted, because it's a very small forest, and it's got, some not issues, but some management harvesting sort of difficulties. It's quite difficult to sell it as a stumpage sale. So the other way to do it is that we employ forest management to manage the marketing and the selling of the logs on our behalf. So we get all the gross sales, which is 890,000, but we have to pay all the costs. So we pay the cartage costs, the harvesting costs, the roading costs. So they'll come off, and we ended up with an indicated profit on this harvesting of 209,000.
So we're paying 680K. 889.
Yeah, we get 889 in, pay 680.
We need money in before we pay it.
Yeah.
Through the chair, we have a forestry reserve that will be paying for this. So essentially, again, it's not a reserve where we hold cash funds, but essentially it goes in and out of our cash.
Good question.
Yes, good question.
Your comment in the considerations paragraph there alluded to if a decision is made to replant the buffer area. What are the carbon credit cost implications if we choose not to?
Yes, so through the chair, these were planted what they call post 1990 forests, so planted 1997. So there was no obligation to replant, but along the way it's been confirmed through our finance team that we never actually put it into the ETS. So we haven't actually claimed any carbon credits. So it's quite open to whatever we choose to replant. So I would add that the replanting won't happen until the following winter. Yeah, it needs time to settle in and think about it.
Yeah, through the chair, it's too small for the carbon credit scheme, so the acreage is inadequate.
Okay, yes, I thought you might say something.
That's it.
Yeah. Councillor Greenspan.
Thank you, Richard. Now I forgot what I was going to say. The lines come, oh, yes, I was going to say log prices have improved slightly and actually only slightly. Yeah, because there's been a big flush in the market, and we know that, and then all sorts of things that happen with China. So the lines company pay for the first trim, and we don't pay for that. Have the lines company done the first trim?
So all I can advise banks is going back 2 years, we got our first notice that lines will be coming in issue. So we've using our cross management, we start indicating we're looking at harvesting them, and we've had a second notice, and we've also had an instance where one of the trees actually fell down and hit one of their poles, so that we had a call out, so which we had to pay for that.
Was that during Gabriel?
No, that was in the last 6 months.
Okay, so you don't know if they've done the first trim or not, obviously, because I'm pretty sure that they do that first trim. I don't think it's exclusive just to homeowners. I think, they do the first trim. I mean, it's just something that you might like to look at. I mean, it's all right for them to send out a notice, of course they're going to do that. But if you went back and asked them, you may be able to hold it off for a year or two, and perhaps log prices might improve. But then, of course, when you look at the cost of harvesting them from New Zealand Forest Managers, it's jumping in. Just all.
Yeah, just through chair, just respond. I did raise that New Zealand Forest Managers. They indicated because of the size of the trees now, it'd be quite difficult to do what they call a decent prune. So they weren't recommending it. It's in the proper
Because of
parameters.
who they are and the reason that they were planted. They weren't planted there for being a forest survey. They were planted there to be a buffer.
Correct.
It is like like 23% return seems quite good. Is that comparable to other forest returns? It's not as simple as that. The maths.
Look, I suppose it's, by speaking from different land uses, I suppose you've got forestry or farming, you know, and often those two are compared. So a site like this, return from putting in pine trees over 25, 30 years, it's probably not too different than if we use it for, you know, good quality farming, or we leased it out for like a long-term hay and silage making arrangement. Yeah, so that's the old argument that goes on all the time. You hear it between the farmers and the foresters, and it often comes back to the class of land, how flat it is, how productive it is. Yeah, so.
Pete Hero said we had another price from Olson's or something like that. P.F. Olson's. Who would look after our forests.
Yeah, it's true. Indian Forest manage all our forests. Yeah. Yeah, and
That rain like what
Yeah.
Olson's did that, but anyway.
we
Have we got an alternative price?
so how they on the they get various prices for the logs from the different mills. Yeah, so some are going to Tenon, some are going to Taupo, some are the export bid. So they any one time they're looking when they sell the logs, what the best price they can get.
Yeah, don't we have another price?
Not for the harvesting contract for them.
Is that commercial, you know, normally we get a couple of prices, don't we, 2 or 3 prices or market?
Yes.
Like that's the wrong trade.
Yeah, so there's a couple of parts to it. One is when our main forest management contract is going up for a re-tender this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's been, so the current one is coming towards its end.
Right.
Yeah, so.
So we should through the price of firewood, so I mean, it should go to the firewood business.
Yeah, I know. Well, sometimes maybe 3 or 4 grand a weekend just to firewood. Radio, Pete, yes, Councillor Loughlin.
This is not a comment about the backing up the wrong tree. Yeah, so I've in the past just noted this is my brother-in-law's a I'm the forest manager, so I might just say,
Oh, okay.
it's no big either.
It's forest managers owned by the iwi now, isn't it?
It's owned by our 2 forest trusts.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Taylor. I thought Peter said that we have an existing contract with New Zealand Forest Managers, is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
So it's not an issue. It's not like we're awarding a tender or a contract. It's that we already have a contract in place with them. So it would be a natural consequence that they would do this job. So I don't believe you are conflicted in that
Oh, yes, I was
respect.
going to say.
No, yes.
Optics.
Perception. Pete, have we drilled you enough? Okay, happy to move. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. That resolution is here. Don't second it. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Thank you very much, Peter. And all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Right, moving on, we have 5.8, final consideration of plan change 42. Afternoon, ladies.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors. To seek the final approval of Plan Change 42, which is our general rural and rural lifestyle environment, and Plan Change 43, Taupō District Council. So all the appeals in relation to these plan changes have either been resolved or withdrawn. So council can now give final approval, and then the plan change will be able to become operative.
Great. Any questions? No? Excited news. Hillary, nothing there? No.
This is something that's being raised by members of the public of me, and I don't understand the legalities of it, but there is some land in the potential rural lifestyle portion that is not being allowed to reduce its size from the 4.3 down to the 2 hectares due to something to do with contact energy. Are you able to offer any insights over what that means? Because there's a view in the community that anyone can do this, and then it's seems that it's not possible. I don't understand the difference.
Yeah. So right the way through the process, Contact Energy was particularly interested in the rural lifestyle zone. They've obviously, the more houses that they have around them and more people with the potential for more complaints. So they looked at the rural lifestyle environment very carefully, and they submitted on quite a few and opposed them becoming rural lifestyle. So, and then through the process, remember, there is then the opportunity for people to make further submissions. So that would be the time when any landowners might want to come in and say that they oppose contact submission on their land. Unfortunately, we didn't get hardly any of those. We had some landowners out at Centennial Drive who opposed contact, but that was about all. Then through the appeal process, Contact decided to appeal some of those, that they still weren't happy with them becoming rural lifestyle. Through appeals, then landowners are able to join as what's called the 274 party. So then they become into the negotiation process. We had no 274 parties join that appeal process either. So it basically came down to between us and Contact and deciding then through mediation whether they would become rural lifestyle or general rural. So there were multiple appeal contact points, and we essentially went through them and decided the ones that we could live with and ones that we couldn't, and there were ones we couldn't, and there were ones that we could. And we let some of the very discrete rural lifestyle areas go at Turangi and Oranui Road that were near Contact, but they were all on their own. They were very isolated little tiny pockets of rural lifestyle who all had a boundary with general rural anyway, which meant they were going to be in a more difficult position to subdivide regardless. And so that is why we made the decision to let those ones go back to general rural.
Excellent description.
Sorry, it's very long.
No,
Yeah.
When you asked, it's really good to have a decent explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. So we get a query on this, that kind of gets a query. One of your planners be able to do that eloquent answer like you've just done, Hillary?
I think that we'll go out directly to those specific landowners, even though we're not
We obviously they're adjacent to gas stations.
not adjacent to, but near to. They're in the geothermal area that we have matched, so they already have restrictions on them anyway.
Bring it by. Okay. No other questions of the team? Thank you very much, ladies. Appreciate that. Good to get this operative. Trying to get there, Hillary.
Well, they're done now, that's it.
Yeah.
First vote,
Oh, that's it.
done.
Oh, God. What's the next plan on the go? What's the next thing we do?
We've got residential,
Residential.
neighbourhood shops, multi-purpose zone, open spaces, designations. And we're also going to be bringing you our new reformatted plan under the national planning standards, which we have to do anyway, so you guys actually don't get much say in that, but we'll at least update you and let you know how that's going to be managed through the process.
Okay, I look forward to that. All right, number mover, thank you, Councillor Taylor. Second by Councillor Truman. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Operative. Thank you. All right, 5.9, Taupō District Council performance report. This is Julie Gardine. Good afternoon, Julie.
Good afternoon, councillors. So this performance report takes us through the period of December through the end of January, and just some good news. Obviously, there were some very highlights for Taupō over that period of time. So this report focuses on the World Ironman event, and of course, it recognises a couple of pretty awesome recognition by the Taupō district. One being the CNN 14 places to visit in the world, and this is to visit. So some great highlights there from a community sense. Of course, the bulk of the report talks about the organisation that's working in between me and the exec team down the back there. We're very keen.
Thank you very much. Busy few months. All right, so we go to Jeanette now, finance.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Green, please.
Julie, just looking at the customer services and the increase during the summer months, which you would obviously expect because all our holiday homeowners will be in residence. Do we triage those calls into the urgent ones and the ones that can be left until next week?
So the service request absolutely come through the time frame and then monitor the overdue against that time frame. Probably the spike there is staff, not being around perhaps so much over that summer period. So there's a bit of action there to bring out.
Just the emergency ones, and I tell people, to do it this way.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose the telephone calls are still obvious one, but just to make sure that it gets to the right person.
And using that service request system is really helpful for us because we can see then monitor the areas that it's coming in from. It helps us aim to put resource in the right place too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy. Right, Jeanette.
Might start with
Sorry,
the
Fiona.
portfolio. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, sure,
Kia
sorry.
ora. Good to
Yeah.
see you. This is the first report since November.
Yeah.
So it's important. Thanks for the report. The good news is, as Jeanette will corroborate, we're up to 45 million for capital delivery, which is pretty much bang on target. And we're not quite at the end of February yet, the last gasp of this week, so there's still possibly more to come. You've got approximately the same number of projects as per the November report. We've got quantum out and crushed concrete in, so those are the only changes. I guess just focusing on the key changes within the report. I guess there's some good news and bad news regarding Whangamata Road improvements for those involved in the Kinloch community. The good news is that we've taken on board a lot more of the community sentiment with regards to some specific changes. And it was very early days in the project when you saw it in November, whereas we're getting quite close to that end. We have experienced a couple of small speed bumps, no pun, just in case you take a left turn down there. There's been some delays due to the unison cable relocation in challenging ground conditions, but completion is still targeted for the end of March. Drinking water standards, there's been really good progress there, and at Kinloch, the major equipment is nearly installed. Commissioning should commence in June and July, aiming to have handover done by August. It's a really big project, so we're really excited to have that almost complete. And for those of you who are quite keenly awaiting the completion of Southern Trunk Main, one of our big projects, we're at 95% now. That's great news. All the road cones are off Lake Terrace, and there's only a small fence around the pump station at Montague. So we're pretty much there with that.
Sorry, I don't need to finish.
Broadlands Road Transfer Station consent renewal has increased in risk. I'm sure you're aware due to the full development of a program now, leading into that where we need to have a decision made, and we do have slightly less time than what we first thought. So we're realising it's tight, and we're focusing on getting the options fully developed. And finally, for Mangakino, the tender closes on the 27th of March. And that is the summary for this month.
All right, thank you. Any questions for now? Councillor Park.
Yeah, thank you. Pam, did you say that quantum's been taken out of this report? Can I ask why?
Very happy to comment on that through the chair. Quantum is no longer a project in terms of the centralised project reporting, but it has moved into business as usual and the digital transformation. So we are still considering whether or not we report on it in this report for the purposes of the digital transformation, but the project itself in terms of the ERP upgrade is.
Through the chair, I've still got huge concerns about it, and I mean we're not the only one who's suffering with IT issues in this country. But if it's not going to be reported through the performance report, how will we know about it? Because I still think it's a high risk project.
For Sarah, not you, I was just gonna answer.
It is reported at risk insurance, so in detail, and we expected the digital program as a whole will go there, as well as there's a couple of other things going on in that space. So there'll be, you'll see in risk and assurance some confidential items as well in relation to this. So we absolutely recognise that although we've wrapped up the project as a whole, which was our ERP system replacement, we realise that we're still not finished even the last stage of that. So it's a bit of a, as Panelsi, we're like, well, which bit do we report? Do we report the last bit of the ERP or the digital transformation project as a whole? But at the moment, it is being reported through risk and assurance. So we do feel like that is the appropriate avenue, but whether we do put a little bit of a blurb at the bottom, and we talked about this at exec with Panel about the digital program, so you can have oversight of budget and stuff like that. Possibly we will do that, but at the moment we're still dealing with the past stage of Project Quantum, which is what we've been focusing on. So there's not really anything to report. We're still trying to deal with that.
Okay, thank you. I do understand, but because I mean it originally went over budget by so much, and it, to me, I didn't think the project was finished, but particularly being on the move into a new building and everything like that, just to keep you know, people out there that are interested in it, that's all. But yeah.
Through the chair, I would say that's a really good question, and I think I mean, we report on local what is done well in here, right? And that doesn't have necessarily a budget line item, but it's important for people to understand what's happening in that space. So,
Yeah, thank you.
Now the airport apron, that's been completed.
that's correct, yes. I think pending some fresh grass, if you've been out there's a few weeds and it's being of concern, but we're waiting for the fresh grass spray.
Handling all those new flights from Origin Air. Yeah, I forgot to look at that today. That's been done, is it? All done?
Yeah, that was good.
Right.
We've just charged our responsibilities to MB.
Good. Second, the number was too, eh? Yeah, we said one just.
You can't walk.
Yeah. Got it, about paid that yet? Thank you so much. Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Richard. I must have missed that Tianini car park was going to be sealed. I've never seen that before.
Through the chair, what we've done is we've grouped the Turangi-Tongariro. There's two projects. One is a sealing project, so essentially a roading project, and one is a drainage project, so essentially stormwater. And we've grouped them into one because it's the same location, even though they have two quite distinct project managers, two budget line items. For all intents and purposes, they're quite disparate. And you'll see the same in future. They're doing the same thing there. So the project has a similar set of stakeholders, as you know, and just in terms of its status, it's Jason Dane, who's looking after that within my team, and I know he's working really closely with Georgia, who's doing the drainage project as well, and there has been some delays on the ground, but they're both comfortable.
I just think the community is going to struggle with seeing car parks being sealed when they haven't got their trees and guttering and things, you know, which is the street right next door to that. So I think council is going to be asked some fairly hard questions on that one. And other things around the place that are still sort of in need of being doing, and we're sealing car parks, but
Well, the Tesla charges, did they ever go in?
it's underway. It is underway. I have had information on another pack, but I can't remember which one. Somewhere else.
I'll find it tomorrow.
Yeah. Actually, Joey probably knows more than I do.
Well, I think there's an update to the.
Is it?
Yes, yeah.
Very good. Thanks for now. Nothing else? The question for now? Yeah.
The financial report for January, I just take the item as read. Just to point out that some of our expenditure is under budget, but I think that will even out over the last 5 months of the year to a certain extent. And And just, you had a report on the TDL fund earlier. A lot of the increase in revenue on that fund is coming through as unrealised gains. So that's sitting in other revenue as opposed to our finance revenue, which is under budget. So you're getting capital gains on the value of the fund as opposed to receiving interest payments. It's the easiest way I can put that. As Hanel said, our capital expenditure is sitting at $45 million to 63.5% of our delivery target, of around 68. 68 target. And you've had the update from Trish from also far on the value of the TEL fund, so I'll be that in that paper. I'm happy to take any questions.
I just want to acknowledge the CapEx delivery because it has been a focus and we've had lots of conversations across the organisation how we can support CapEx delivery this year. So it's been to see some of those figures come through.
Good one. Thank you. Any questions on that? Thanks a lot.
So we haven't updated the forecast yet.
We're planning on doing a reforecast exercise in February, operating March on February results.
Okay.
We have the moving stage.
Yes, we are. Yeah, just going to say to back the CEO, thank you, Julie and your team. Done a wonderful job and really appreciate it. And those recent accolades, external perception of the district is pretty good, but we can't rest on our laurels. We're going to keep doing it as hard as we can. So well done, team. Thank you very much. Right, do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Westerman. You okay to move that? No, it was seen by Councillor Rachel. Yeah, Rachel. And thank you, the rest of the team. All those in favour, please say aye. It's carried. 5.10. Thank you, ladies. 5.10 Council engagements, March 2025. Appointments, training conference, opportunity. Karen, sorry.
Hello.
Karen, yeah, good afternoon.
So in addition to what's there, you've also now got a workshop on speed limit update, and that's here at Wailder House on the 13th of March, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. And then there are just a couple of appointments and training and conferencing. Do you want to talk about that?
No, just take it as read, but very happy to answer any questions. We are establishing a named full steering group, as discussed before, so that appoint those members of that steering group. Thank you very much, councillors. And so there's a Z meeting coming up, which we need representation for all for us to be there and to hear stuff that's happening across the sector at this time. What it says the government.
Very good. Other changes to the appointments, to the dates and the meetings or whatever. All good. Happy? Thank you, Councillor Park. Second of the Councillor Williamson. All those in favour, please say aye. Yes, carried. Right. Can we have a little break? 2-minute break? Just before we go into the deliberations or next item, which is 5.1, allocation of the strategic partnership plan. Just have a 2-minute quick recess. And you'll be back to item number 5.1. The Briar, these are the funding partnerships. Correct?
They are.
Okay, lead us through. And we will say yes or no, I suppose.
Thank you for your time today and listening into this morning's presentations. It was a huge amount of groups to get through, but really awesome to see the kind of initiatives that our community are looking to run out there. So we are now at the point of the day where it's time to allocate the strategic partnership fund. So we'll start with that paper now.
This is an opportunity for council to partner with organisations to achieve key strategic outcomes and or provide advice on our business as usual activities or projects. The funders for groups who already have strong operational and planning processes in place and have that capacity to support us in what we're doing. As you know, we sought applications from 4th of November till 10th of December, and we received 17 applications in total. You've also received an assessment summary of each of these applications. This is being prepared according to the new eligibility and assessment framework. We've looked at a range of things to do with an application, including the mission, vision, and values of an organisation, strategic alignment, success evaluation, and community support. So late last year, we agreed and you resolved that up to 300,000 of our budget available, our overall budget is 700,000, up to 300,000 of that budget may be put towards these strategic partnerships. You didn't put a limit on how much may be allocated to one. Following this decision being made today, we will be contacting all applicants to advise of the outcome of their application. And for those declined, we will go back to them with rationale around why, to support their ongoing understanding and capability of when applying for funding. I will take the rest of the paper as read, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Leon?
Just wanting to clarify, so we sought those two things, planning for the future of our facilities, essentially, and then to support regional sport.
Yeah, so planning for the future of our sport and recreation facilities, that strategic view, what else is happening around the country, and then also how do we support groups to become more sustainable, that collaboration, coming together to work smarter for the future.
So how many groups qualify for this?
Yeah, so we had 3 applications for the sport. So we had Sport Waikato, we had Lake Taupō Sports Advisory Council, and Oronui Pony Club.
Yeah. But not the creative Waikato.
So they'll be coming later. So we'll focus on
Sport rec reserve.
sport rec